Hey there, and happy Friday. At least it's Friday right now as I'm going live on my YouTube channel. But wherever or whenever you're watching this, happy whatever day it might be. Hey, I'm Kevin with Kevin Kolbe Media, and if we're just meeting, thank you for being here. Whatever time you drop in, hopefully you'll drop in live and drop a comment, say hi. But if you are watching this later, still drop in and let me know where you're watching from. I've never asked that before. I'm in North Carolina. Love it. As I used to joke with a friend of mine who lives in LA that I'm on the right coast. Because it's a coast to coast thing. So, but anyway, but I am Kevin Kolbe Media, and in case you're new to the channel or just we haven't met before, I am all about helping you make an impact with online video. A lot of different things on the channel that we cover. This past week, I've been doing some interviews with other content creators and absolutely loving it. I mean, absolutely loving it. And I think it was Wednesday of this week, I posted an interview I did with Rob Balasabas. He's with TubeBuddy. Phenomenal guy. Probably the happiest guy I think I've ever known. Excuse me, other than maybe Pee Wee Herman. I don't know where that came from. But Rob is phenomenal. Has a Facebook group, one of my favorite Facebook groups called the Content Cafe. And also let me give a shout out to Rob. Just started a Patreon Patreon account, and it's really cool. I applaud him for that. You know, I've gone back and forth on Patreon. Should I do it or not? But anyway, but that interview was this week. You can find it, Rob Balasabas, on the channel. And then also the week before, Owen Video. Next week, I'm really excited about this. I'll be talking with Diana Gladney. And love her stuff. Learned a lot about my Canon M50, which is what I'm using to live stream here, from Diana. So I really, really enjoy that. But today, and by the way, make sure you drop in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to know that and connect. Today we're talking about, here's the question I posed. Should you start a video podcast in 2020? Now, why would I say now? Well, because it's 2020. I'm going to give you, well, I'll give you the answer after that, because there is an answer, and it's either yes or no. And I'm going to show you 100 million reasons why you should. Ha! That doesn't get your attention. I don't know what's will. What's will? Let's do this thing. Hey there, and again, I'm Kevin with Kevin Kolbe Media, helping you make an impact in the world of online video. If that's something that interests you, hopefully you'll subscribe and find some other videos on the channel. So, the question is, should you start a video podcast? And I think there's really one answer, and this is it. Didn't work. It went away. Anyway, the answer was going to be yes. Yes! A big, fat yes. Why? Well, here's the thing. Now, I'm not saying just like, I'll just start talking and start a video podcast and everybody will watch. I mean, it takes time, and it may never take off, but you got to put in the work. I think you do. You have to put in the work. I have seen explosive growth in my channel in probably the last little over a month. And I think there are some specific things that have happened. And I'm probably going to cover that either in another live stream or a video or something like that, because, I don't want to say that, I guess if you compare my channel numbers and views to some other YouTubers, let's just say Peter McKinnon, or Sean Cannell, my buddy. Yeah, I have a small channel, but it's nice to have the subscribers, and I would love to have you subscribe if you're finding value here. But at the same time, you get so wound up in the numbers that you forget it's people. So whatever my sub count is today, I see that as every one of those is a person. And to me, it's just great when that happens. So, um, but I think you have to work at it. And quite honestly, even though I've had a YouTube channel for a bit, I wasn't really working at it for a while. So, why video podcast? So, if you have been thinking about getting into video, or you're just starting into video and you're intrigued with podcast, a video podcast kind of gives you the best of I start to say both worlds. I do think video is by far the best, but I think it gives you kind of the best of two worlds, right? Let's say it that way. But especially if you do an interview type of show, I really, really think you ought to look at starting a video podcast. Why? Well, now, I'm not a fan of multicasting, and I've done that. And multicasting is basically just a fancy word for, like right now, I'm only going live on YouTube. So think of multicasting as I'm going live on YouTube and Facebook and Periscope and all at the same time. And I know a lot of people do that. Rob does that. Rob Balasavas does that and does it very well. I've also heard it reduces your reach and things like that. I don't think you're getting dinged on it, but right now I'm talking to a YouTube audience, and it's hard to talk to a YouTube audience and a Facebook audience the same way. Having said that, I've multicasted, but I think this is different. So I just wrapped up a third season of a show called Two Guys Talking About that I did with a buddy of mine. First season, we shot a whole month's worth in advance at his house, and I'd come and I'd edit, and we posted but it wasn't live. We posted to Facebook and YouTube, and then I stripped out the audio for a podcast. So if you think about it, we were on 3 different platforms. Season 2, I think we did the podcast version, and then we only did Facebook, and then we came back for the third and final season, and we actually, let me back up, season 2 we did live to Facebook, and then season 3 that we just finished, our final season, the series finale, we ended up going live on Facebook and YouTube, and I think I decided not to do the podcast at that point. So we varied it up, and that's probably not the smartest thing to do, but if you think of it as this way, that podcast, now I think podcast growth has slowed a little. I think it's a lot because most of us are at home. We're not traveling. We're not commuting as much. And I think that's what allowed podcasting to explode. But if you look at the world of podcasting and video is still like way, way, way ahead. So there's an opportunity there, right? But if you get into video podcasting, one of the things you need to do is think audibly, if that makes sense. So, for example, if I say, hey, let me tell you about this water bottle I got here and where I got it and the history. Well, if I'm listening to a podcast, I don't have a reference to what you just held up, right? I want to say hey to my buddy Eileen Smith. You want to talk about a rock star of what, like every platform? Miss Eileen is phenomenal. Make sure you check out her channel. Good to see you this morning. But if you're going to do a video podcast, you want to be thinking as you're doing your video, you want to be thinking audible. Hello, hi, we met. You want to be thinking audible at the same time. So if I were to say, hey, let me tell you about this phenomenal water bottle. In fact, I'll tell you about this. So this water bottle I got when I was at Fox. It's called Second Chance. It's one of the many shows that didn't work. In fact, this show had like three names before it ever aired, which is never a good sign. It's like, well, if we keep changing the name, it'll be watchable. No, maybe if you make it watchable. So, but if I'm talking about this water bottle right here, we would get swag all the time. So if this were going to a podcast, I'd say, now, if you're listening to this on podcast, I'm showing this water bottle that I got. That's all it might take. So you need to think kind of two-headed, and it can be done. So when I started the broadcast today, I said I wanted to give you 100 million reasons why you should consider a video podcast. And if you're thinking, oh, dang, he's not really like number one. No, so let's just kind of get to what I mean. Have you heard of Joe Rogan? So Joe Rogan has this little bitty channel. Actually, let me do something right there. All right, so Joe Rogan has this small channel, sarcastically saying now, called the Joe Rogan Experience. He actually has several, and if you notice, this has what does it say? 8.45 million subscribers. Now, I mean, let's just think about it. That's huge, right? So I'm obviously joking. Now, I think I've watched all of 2 of Joe Rogan's. Actually, you know what? I've never watched an entire one altogether. But I just want to show you something again. So let's go back. So if we look at Joe Rogan right here, so not fancy, but this is what I think. Actually, to me, this is the best example of a video podcast. So I want to show you something. So we go up to videos, and by the way, if you ever want to see how videos rank on a channel, you can go here and right here by sort by. You can see if you do that, you can get to the newest. But I want to look at the most popular. There we go. I've been having internet issues this morning, so if this is slow. Look at this. This video right here is from a year ago. Now, Eileen can probably tell you too. I mean, your thumbnails are very important, but when you get to a certain point, I'm not saying that Joe's. I don't know Joe. I didn't even watch Fear Factor, so I kind of remember it from that. But there's a point where he's got now. They have you can see he's got a layout. It evidently says the Joe Rogan Experience, the number, and the information here. And, Alex Jones, controversial guy, Ben Shapiro, a bunch of. But look at this, Elon Musk. This is a year old. It has 34 million views. Now, maybe you're saying, yeah, but, I mean, that's a big channel. But, at some point, Joe Rogan started with 0. He started with like no subs and no views and things like that, and he's grown. So Kevin, where does this 100 million thing come in that you're talking about? Well, let me show you this article. Joe Rogan just inked. You ready for this? I need to get something. He just inked a $100 million deal to go to Spotify. So the article goes on, and by the way, Spotify has recently said that they are getting into video podcasting. In fact, I think I may have heard that from Eileen. She may have posted that in one of the Facebook groups we're in. I'm not sure about that, but Spotify, what was it, a year or so ago, bought Anchor. If you're looking for a place to host a podcast, I would highly recommend Anchor. It's anchor.fm. It's free. It is so easy to use. They take care of the distribution, and they are now owned by Spotify. Well, Spotify is going after iTunes. Hello. And they're just not going to sit there and hope it works. They're investing. Well, a few weeks ago, they announced that they were going to, well, it says it right here, less than 2 weeks after revealing plans to push into video podcasting. Now, that's a big deal. That is a huge deal. They have signed an exclusive audio and video deal with Joe Rogan. Now, Joe's got more channels than that. The one I just showed you, 8.4 million. They also do clips. They do a clip version. So they actually take parts of it and clip it down. Well, look at that. That's got 4.46 million. And it talks about, he shows nets of upward to 240 million views per month. Again, he didn't start doing this. He got to this. This is about, it's a marathon. As Sean Cannell says, it's a marathon. Now, here's the kicker. September 1st, his podcast will be exclusively on Spotify. But, where does it say it? Right in here. Yeah, he's got the number one most searched podcast on Spotify. And I think it was right here. The deal is for the Joe Rogan's full catalog, including future and past episodes, so like the one we just looked at, all installments will disappear from YouTube and go there. That's huge. That is huge. So just imagine that. Joe Rogan has built up this brand, this big business that has an insane amount of reach and audience and fans. And this isn't about whether you like Joe or not. This is just stating what he does out there. Because there's other ones. I mean, Sarah Dietschy has a video podcast. I think Roberto Blake has one. Sean Cannell with Think Media, they've started one. Actually, I think they started Think Marketing, but I think they spun that off as a podcast. I'll say it's easy to do in terms of how you do it, but you still need to have thoughts about what goes into it and the content and all that good stuff, right? It's just, again, if you just throw something out there and just hope, I'm the next Joe Rogan by this time next year, well, you're going to have to put some time into it. Now, maybe you can score some guests and stuff like that. Who knows? But think about this deal. I mean, first of all, I think this is a hit for YouTube because they're going to lose all his content and it's all gone. But think about that. Joe just signed a $100 million deal to move a video podcast to Spotify, where it'll be exclusive. And what he talks about in the article is, in fact, when the show's over, I'll put a link to that article down in the comments section if you want to read it and see a little bit more about it. But he talks about it's a distribution thing. He's still going to own the content. He's not giving it up. So the question comes back to, should you start one? Well, I think it's a great way to grow a business, to grow a nonprofit, to grow your personal brand. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a content creator and you like in interviewing people. So like, for example, when we started the show, I mentioned that I'm doing these weekly interviews now with other content creators. Talked to Owen Video. This week was Rob Balasabas. Next week is Diana Gladney. And the week after that, Scott Ayers with Agora Pulse. Well, what I've decided to do is I record a different ending to each one, and then I upload them as a podcast to Anchor. And my podcast has a completely different name. So, does my podcast have a big audience? No, not at all. In fact, you look at how many plays it's getting, and it's like, well, that's pretty anemic. Now, I haven't put a lot of time into it. I've been far more focused on video and more recently my YouTube channel, so I can help other creators, but I can just help people get into video and appreciate it and love it like I do, because I've seen the power of video. But if you are in, I just talked to a guy the other day, and he does interviews. And he was asking me about what I thought about putting the interviews as audio only, podcast only on YouTube. And I said, no, I wouldn't. And I used to feel differently about this. I used to think, well, what does it matter? But if you think about it, I don't know if you've ever listened to podcasts. If you have a favorite podcast or something like that, drop it down in the comments. I'd love to know what you listen to and how many people are really into podcasts. But if when I was going to an office working for the TV station, there were some I would listen to because I could start and stop. If I'm on the road, yeah, maybe, and an audio book. But I'm not turning on my YouTube channel and letting it play on my phone while I'm driving down the road. YouTube is, I think, far more anything, a visual medium. Does that mean you can't put a podcast only on there? No, you can. But I just don't think it's going to do that well. Now, let's say, again, if you take back my interviews, when I shot the interview with Rob, it's just us talking, for about a half hour, and I do hope you watch it because he is so good and drops so much wisdom in that 30 minutes. But that plays in a podcast because it's a conversation. Somebody like Pat Flynn, somebody like Nick Loper, who does Side Hustle Nation. Now, I don't think Nick does video, but I could very well see what Nick does work as a video podcast. So the question is, should you start one? Well, if you haven't started anything yet, but you love talking to people and sharing their stories and things like that, that might be something to consider. Again, I don't want to immediately say if you do that, you're going to sign this $100 million deal. But there's an audience there, and there's revenue there, and there's a potential to reach a whole different audience. So think about that as you continue to create. Now, I think some things would work and some things wouldn't. I've got a friend that is ready to get into YouTube, and he's a builder and does amazing things with wood and stuff like that. I don't think his would work as a podcast. Well, I'm sorry. I don't think what his content would work as a video podcast. Now, he might do a different podcast. An advantage that video podcast will have is that it's kind of you're creating two pieces of content at once. So, if the interviews I'm doing, I'm taking that one interview that I shoot one time, and then I'm uploading it to YouTube, and I'm splitting it all, and I'm taking the audio and doing it as a podcast. So I'm getting two pieces of content, but I'm only doing it one time. The interviews work that way. So it's something I want you to think about, because I don't know that a lot of people are thinking that way. I think they're thinking, if I have my YouTube channel or my Facebook group or whatever, then I'll do a podcast. Nothing wrong with that. And there might be something to be said about doing that. But if you get into more of an interview, or maybe it's a way for you to produce somebody's. So if you're thinking of an interview type of format, or you have one, step back and go, I just bit my lip. That's how you know it's live. Step back and go, could this work as a podcast too? If it could, I would try it. And again, in a different video, I'm going to cover some of the things that I think you need for that. You can start a video podcast with your phone. You can shoot the video here. You've got the audio. And in fact, Anchor has an app. If you just wanted the podcast, you could just do it right off your phone. So you can get in at a lower price point to try it. I certainly wouldn't invest in a ton of expensive gear to see if you like it, but I would work it out. But is there an audience there? Absolutely. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and I hope this helped you. And again, if you have a video podcast, I'd like to know. Just put that down in the comments, and even what platform you use. When I started my podcast, I tried Libsyn. Libsyn's phenomenal. I thought it was more complicated than I needed. And then I went to, is it Pippa? I think. Pippa sounds right. And I really like those guys. Actually, the CEO of Pippa reached out and said, hey, I saw you had a podcast, which was amazing since it was tiny. Would you consider checking out our platform? I did. He cut me a sweet subscription deal, not $100 million. And I thought, what the heck? I'll try it. And then I found Anchor. And when I realized Anchor was powerful and free and had a lot more functions, I thought, this is a no-brainer, Kevin. Move it to. In fact, they even moved it for me. It was phenomenal. And again, every place, you know what I should have done. I tell you what I'm going to do. Let me just go to it right now. And again, this is horrible to say. I don't put a lot of time into my podcast. So this is one of those things where you're saying, well, thanks for sharing this with me, Kevin, because you're not even doing it that well. But it's not a number one priority for me. It's something to have. The other thing about Anchor is that you can monetize. See, I told you I'm having trouble with my internet. It's just not loading. You can monetize. So it's not like YouTube. Like my channel hasn't gotten to that threshold where I can join what's called the YouTube Partner Program. So I'm not gonna. Well, sorry, it's not loading. So I can't monetize my YouTube channel. Now, there's a lot of other ways I can make money and do make money. But Anchor, day one, you can have sponsorships. You can make money. You can have people do certain things. When I say do certain things, like there was a lady that was supporting me for a while. She just wanted to support the podcast. So here we go. So this is this is mine. And what happens is, it's called This Week Was the Best Day Ever. What happens is when you set it up, you get a dashboard like this. I mean, I'm sorry. This is like the public site. So if I were to send you to my Anchor site, it would be here. Well, you could support it. You can listen on Spotify. And wonder why they put Spotify right there. Oh, yeah, they own them. There's past episodes. You can see I don't have that many episodes in here. But every one of these, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, some of these I haven't even heard of. Castbox, Google Podcasts, Google and iTunes, those are going to be your biggest ones, and Spotify. Every one of those, they take care of. You put it up, they take care of the distribution. I've got 2 or 3 episodes already scheduled, like you can schedule your post here on YouTube. So it might be something to think about. Is it for you? Don't know. You have to make that call. But if you have an interview type format, I would consider it. Doesn't mean that it has to be interview, but I do think those do better. I haven't seen research. That's my gut. Because I think having that back and forth, again, like Sarah Dietschy has one. I think Roberto Blake has one. I know Sean Cannell has one. And there's other ones out there as well. So, hey, I hope this helped you think maybe differently about how to use your online video in a podcast form, but still stay true to your video. I don't know, but I appreciate you being here, whether you're watching it live or on the replay. Drop a comment and let me know if you have a video podcast and maybe what platform you're using too. One of the things I love doing is helping people make an impact in the world with online video, and that'd be you too. So make sure you come back. I post videos, brand new videos every week. And if you ever have an idea, hit me up. You can send me a message, but you can also just hit up in the comments and say, hey, how about this? And I'll look into it. I hope you have a fantastic day. Now, get out there and make some videos, all right? Bye.